I'm not gonna tell you what's the movie about. You're here. I think you know. But the main character is anxiety. When you're diagnosed with anxiety disorder, this movie really does hit hard, and like kudos for the representation because I think it's incredibly on point. There was a lot of visual gags in this movie, visual storytelling. Let's just say, for example, when anxiety comes for the first time and the way she uses the console. She's incredibly appealing. She's just completely enchanting, especially at the beginning. I would just sit right there, nod my head in agreement, saying, oh yeah, that could happen. This is smart to think of. She is shown being this efficient, proficient, and professional person, right? And Joy's like, oh my god, maybe I do not, know what to do, how to work with this. I love anxiety. I absolutely love her. She is, I love her because I hate her so much. I love her representation. I love how she's shown. I think it was portrayed accurately, very accurately. I think mostly because anxiety is something we all feel, sometimes. As someone who's also neurodivergent, I loved how they visualized, how anxiety works. It's really helped me so much to just understand why is this so important? Why is this such a big deal? To see that the imagination land, when you have ADHD, it works on the extreme, and that all of the workers there they're so cranked up. All of that creativity is being corrupted, and how incredibly deadly that is. I love how it shows when Joy was in the imagination land, how not thinking about, the wrong thing that happens is not being stupid and unprepared. How anxiety says herself, we need to be prepared. And this is a very difficult loop to get out of if you are basing your existence on logic. If you're a thinking personality type, if you're trying to be smart, if you're like knowledge. Because the base of anxiety is we are proving that we are intelligent. And dropping anxiety feels like dropping that idea that you're being smart. You can't convince yourself that it's unhealthy. And this movie did that for me. So anxiety, she kind of just comes in, and I would really say how attracted I was to her at the very beginning, right? She comes in all prepared, with plan for everything, solution for everything. And she has figured out all the outcomes that might happen. And that's just beautiful, and I think that's part of the reason that we are stuck with her. We are stuck with anxiety because she just lures us with this promise. And it's really difficult to see how the promises she gives and she makes, they are not real, they're not true actually. And I really loved how in the imagination land Joy started getting out those positive scenarios, and to show that Riley is not being stupid here because she just doesn't want to be prepared, but that it can be as many positive outcomes as the bad ones. And that I really love that she used a lot of word like torture, being hard on her, and basically hurting her, she was yeah, you're hurting her, why are you hurting her? And by showing her these horrible images, and I wouldn't ever thought just anxiety, she was very confused because her thinking all this time was I'm trying to help here, I'm trying to work this out. Let's take Riley, right? So if we don't practice, we can't get into the team, and then we'll be alone forever. Which I was during the movie, yeah, that's definitely something that can happen, right? And to be honest, someone else thinking that this is cruel, it really did put it in a perspective for me. how much time I have wasted, like dwelling on these, torturing myself. Like when she brought it to my attention, I was like, oh my god, it is. Like, it is torturing yourself and it is being hurtful to yourself. So, for example, that moment when anxiety says, what if Riley is better than Val and, Val hates her, and then Joy is like, why if she's better than her and she respects her? That was so heavy for me, because you live in this land of, oh yeah, she will hate me if that happens, and that she will respect me if that happens. It's just as possible, And that's the moment that it challenges that thinking, and it fails. It fails. It falls apart, and and you just realize how wrong you have been. And that brings me down to, I think it was a sense of self. That's kind of what therapy does too, right? So all our life is about finding out that we have these basically like statements in our head, and because they are wrong, like the I'm not good enough, for example, they get kind of buried inside of us and forgotten, and they're subconscious. We don't know that we think that, we just know the output, right? So for example, that we are very hard on ourselves, we are perfectionists, stuff like that. So going back to anxiety, when you realize you can't get out of it, even if you hate that feeling, even if you don't want it, you can't get out of it if you stop swooning over her, how right she is. Because we believe that, if you're in love with anxiety, at the start of the movie, when she just came in and she fixed everything and she did everything, this is a serious red flag. And until we stop crushing on her, we can't get out. And it's kind of hurtful, because I'm like, oh, I love her. She means so much to me. She was helping me when no one else did, when like the world was all you could ever have. Because like in the movie, she doesn't want to hurt you, right? Her goal isn't to make you suffer. Her goal is to help you. I'm starting to see how every moment of my life, every moment, is just anxiety. And this is even a bigger of a deal if you're neurodivergent. How easily she just takes you. So I think there is this one more thing that I wanted to talk about, which is the importance of doing stuff. The thing related to Riley identity, sense of self. So this movie really showed me as someone who has been pretty passive in their life and had a syndrome of an endless student, how you actually need to do stuff and how hurtful it is to have all your memories just go at the back of your head, and how this can prevent you from creating new statements about yourself, about who you are and about what you are, And when you don't know that, you can't really grow on them, right? If you don't accept that you are not as great as a friend and you still believe in that delusion that you are, you can't grow past it. And to be honest, I was completely amazed by you can't just when you are working on yourself, when you are in therapy, you can just sit down and think that you're gonna change your thinking about yourself. These wrong statements that you have in the back of your head, you can't kind of just go into that. Even if you find them and you realize them, you can just oh well, I'm just gonna stop thinking that. No, your brain is proof-based, a reality proof-based, and you can't change your thinking about yourself if you do not provide it with some new proof, with some new proof that the things are different. Go out there and provide more proof to your head. As someone who thought that I can just sit down and watch YouTube videos about self-improvement, realize what my issue, and then kind of go oh yeah, let's stop thinking that. That's why most of people can just exist in the universe without knowing any of this, because we kind of have this programmed a little bit, right, in ourselves. We do it naturally, and if there's a problem, if we don't, well, we kind of need to know that and make it conscious, which is very difficult. And most people don't know that and don't have that. So guys, go out there, do stuff, prove yourself wrong. And there is this subtopic of you can't change who she is. To be honest, I think this topic is a little bit underdeveloped. Some time that was wasted for the Vault shenanigans that were meant for younger audiences. They could have cut it short to make a little bit more room for that joy and anxiety have basically the same arc through the movie, and that wasn't really that stressed out. Maybe especially for me and for other people that still don't really get it, you know. Like, it was all about how there's the scene at the end when Riley has panic attack, this very famous scene. I completely fall apart at this scene, by the way. And she says to anxiety that you can't change who she is. You know, I only caught it now how anxiety always she says it like 3 or 4 times in the movie, which is incredibly often, that someone asks like, but Riley doesn't do something like that. And she answers, she doesn't yet, but she will be. Always in this future tense. So that was really stressed part of the movie, that anxiety as well as joy at the very beginning doesn't accept who Riley is right now. That she isn't like that, you know, that, for example, she wouldn't have never left her friends to join the other team, and she basically tries to like change who she is. Like, she has this idea of who Riley is supposed to have, and I'm still not sure what exactly does it mean, because I have so been there. I am there, you know, I'm trying to get out of this, which is like, and then anxiety takes over completely, and like you became sort of parody of yourself. For example, like Riley likes hockey, but maybe she isn't cut out to be the best because she isn't enjoying it that much, you know, she isn't, you know, that ambitious. And even if anxiety feels like she should have been, that isn't who she is. That's, by the way, my definition of the meaning of the last scene with Joy. It's, first of all, rejection of the idea that you feel this joy when you grow up, but also kind of confirming it, because we know that those small, simple things bring out joy. And I loved how that was that exactly for Riley. Like, she just loves hockey, and all that additional stuff doesn't matter. The fact that she happens to be good is just additional. And how simple Joy is, you know, that's the beauty of her compared to the complex anxiety. Like, the way they both use console shows that so well. And this is really difficult, I think, to understand when you are like one person and you're kind of setting these goals for yourself, right? Another takeaway from this movie is you can't change the bad stuff. You can't change the bad things she did to, like, when Joy like sees her past her past memories and what she did, and that she sometimes is jealous and she sometimes is unbearable, and bearing down these emotions and not accepting that basically stops you from growth. Like, it's really interesting how Joy was looking mostly in the past as for the future with anxiety, right? Because she isn't like that, but like she will be, and if she will be doing like this, that, and that, then it'll be fine. You know, I think this can take you a long way, and that's like exactly the trap of anxiety that we're talking about. But the fact that you just can't fully change who you are based on anxiety and some sort of like statements or maybe some sort of wishes that you have about yourself, it's very difficult. It's difficult for me to comprehend still. And I think this is a big plot point that really could have used much more time. That's it, I guess.
Sleep.